being able to recommend an agreement to Republican lawmakers and that it includes no tax increases.
Mark Thiessen is a former speechwriter for President George W. Bush. Mark, what do you make of all this? Let's specifically talk about John Boehner. Has the right, have the conservatives in the Republican Party, have they lost confidence in their leader?
Oh, I don't think so at all. Look, John Boehner is winning. The Tea Party is winning. If you look at the outlines of the deal that's coming out right now, Speaker Boehner set out a couple of parameters for any deal. One, it had to be $1 of spending cuts for every $1 of debt limit increase, and two, there would be no new taxes in it. The deal that's coming out right now is exactly along those lines. And I'll tell you something interesting. Senator Rob Portman last night on the Senate floor announced his office, and he's the former director of the Office of Management and Budget, so he's a budget expert. If you follow the Boehner construct of cutting $1 of spending for every $1 you raise the debt limit, you get to balance in 10 years. Okay? So if the deal follows the Boehner's construct, and if we continue over the course of the next 10 years to cut $1 of spending for every $1 of debt limit we raise, we'll balance the budget in 10 years. This is a huge victory if it happens.
It's interesting because the president less than a week ago was still saying that you had to have increased revenues as part of this deal and that it had to go past the 2012 election. It looks like he's going to get the second thing, because our reporters on the ground there are reporting that they are going to extend this thing past the election. So it seems like he won on that point, correct?
That's true, but fine, let him have that point. I mean, it's fascinating. You know, David Axelrod, his campaign chief the other day, said that this is a definitional fight that he's winning because he's holding the center and the Republicans are seen as on the extreme. Well, if it was such a great definitional fight for the president, why wouldn't he want to refight it in 6 months? I mean, it's very telling that he wants to put this through the next election. And if you look at the polling, in the last 2 months, his support among independents has absolutely collapsed. For the first time, independents, a majority of independents, disapprove of his job rating. If he was winning this debt limit fight, that wouldn't be the case.
But Mark, at one point during this whole fight, this back and forth, John Boehner himself came to the floor and said, look, I even allowed for revenue increases, which is a definition of more taxes. And it was almost at that moment that the real fiscal conservatives in the House said, hey, wait a minute, I'm not so sure I'm on board. And that's why some of the vote delays on the Boehner plan happened, right?
Well, sure, but first of all, he has not $800 billion in tax increases, $8 billion in revenue increases, which comes from a fairer, flatter system. That's a big distinction. It was when President Obama demanded $400 billion more, which would have required tax increases, that he walked away. And that was a very brave thing for him to do. I said last week it was like Reagan at Reykjavik walking away from Gorbachev on the nuclear deal.
So while people have been speculating, sorry to interrupt you, that maybe this would be the end of the speaker's speakership, you think he may actually come out of this more powerful?
Absolutely. Look, he has led his troops sending a very strong message to the Senate. Even the difficulty he had in passing his bill last week sent a message to the Senate of how hard it is to pass something through the House. It raised the bar for what's going to have to come out of the Senate in this negotiation. So I think he's set the parameters. The final deal is going to follow those parameters, and I think it's going to be a big victory for John Boehner.
All right, Mark Thiessen, thank you much. Again, we're reporting right now that a new deal that's going